Roblox parkour games have been in wide variety throughout Roblox, consisting of many players. Although not many are well known, I want to deep dive into this one particular parkour game, which failed to revive after its fall. This here, we are talking about Flood Escape 2. Flood Escape 2 is the sequel to the original Flood Escape game, developed by Crazy Blocks. Flood Escape 2 publicly debuted in September 10, 2017, and it quickly gained popularity within the Roblox community for its unique parkour mechanics and cooperative gameplay. Flood Escape 2 had many updates and its player base was usually over an average of 7,000. But what led to this collapse of this famous game? Before we start the video, I need to talk about the difficulty modes in Flood Escape 2 to clarify some things later in the video. There are currently 6 different difficulties in Flood Escape 2 right now. These are called Easy, Normal, Hard, Insane, Crazy, and Crazy Plus. With that info, we'll get into the rise and fall of Flood Escape 2. In September 10, 2017, Flood Escape 2 publicly debuted into Roblox as beta. Upon release, the game exploded in popularity and reached the most engaging game page on Roblox. It reached a constant of 15,000 plus players on a concurrent average during the first few months of release. 3 months after the game's release, new maps such as Decrypted Seas, Graveyard Cliffside, Darkside Facility, Wild Savannah, and a Christmas-themed map called Northern Workshop were implemented into the game. Throughout the first half of 2018, Flood Escape 2 has seen a massive growth in popularity and community. Many maps had some balance changes, and a few new maps have also appeared. However, in the second half, things started to plunge down. Only one map was released, with a few small minor updates. Here started the slow downfall of Flood Escape 2. Throughout 2019, only 3 updates happened, this being the Blue Moon update in July 16. This was something major because the game has gone through months without anything new and challenging. Crazy maps are something that has been majorly begged on from the community. They were all awaiting for the first day where a crazy maps comes to life in the main game. The second main update was the addition of group buttons, a mechanic that made some selected buttons a group effort compared to the previous solo effort. This update, while was major, failed to receive attention from people as the game's player count kept dropping. 2 days after the group buttons update, a new mode called Chaos Mode gets released into the game. This mode did manage to gain some traction, as Flood Escape 2 did gain some players for a while after its release. This didn't last long, as in a few weeks, the hype died down and the game fell into the pits once more. 2020 was a rough start for Flood Escape 2, having absolutely 0 updates in the first half of the year. This led from an average of 3,000 players in the experience to only an average of 1,000 or less. However, will the many updates in the second half of the year save this game? Throughout November and December of 2020, a total of 7 new maps were introduced to Flood Escape 2. The lobby was revamped with a new OST, while a system called the Intensity system was added. Intensity may be boosted with the currency called Gems. With this sudden new updates, the game grew a bit of attention as its player base went as high as 4,000 due to the release of a new crazy, but eventually fell as the game grew wary without consistent updates once more. In 2021, Flood Escape 2 started the year with a lot of minor updates and bug fixes. The only notable thing that happened here was the release of Magmatic Mines on February 10th. However, on March 18th, completely new mechanics were brought into Flood Escape 2. These were the sliding mechanic and zip lines. This was completely game-changing, as in this update, 19 maps were updated with slight notable buffs to most of them. Flood Escape peaked great heights once again on April due to the release of Roblox Metaverse. During this time, the game hit a peak of 16,000 players. The event also released lost pages, which I think is quite insignificant. After the end of Metaverse, however, Flood Escape 2 fell back down to an average of 1,000 players. While nothing much happened until October, Forsaken Era was added during this time with a new improved daily reward system. Throughout October to December, 3 new maps were also added. However, the popularity of Flood Escape 2 continues to decline to an average of a few hundred players. This decline finally stops after a great update in the October of 2022. On October 19, 2022, an update in Flood Escape 2 releases 3 new maps. The thing so special about these maps were that they were all in the higher difficulties of parkour in Flood Escape 2. These were Ignis Peaks, Sandswept Ruins, and Satomi Springs. These new map releases, along with some new events such as the Mirror Mode, brought Flood Escape 2 some new challenging content for people to get used to, as they need to remember the new maps while also memorizing the old maps as they had mirrored versions of it. Flood Escape 2 stayed somewhat strong, averaging 1.1 thousand players all the way until the end of 2022. People were not prepared for the crazy deeds that Crazy Blocks had prepared for 2023. Flood Escape 2 saw nothing during January of 2023, but on February 6, Crazy Blocks added a new addition in the game: monthly community map updates. With this, every month starting from February 6 will have an update, consisting of completely fresh new maps awaiting to be tested by the players. With the community's help, Flood Escape 2 has finally seen some growth. January of 2023, Flood Escape 2's average player growth has seen growth by March 2023. Throughout the many monthly updates, outstanding maps and OSTs have received attention, even from people who have never played Flood Escape 2. The community has also seen some slow but noticeable growth as the game itself started to grow once more. But slowly, even with all these monthly and weekly updates, why did Flood Escape 2 continue to fall despite providing constant new content? The answer is simple. Parkour games in general were seeing rapid declines during this time on Roblox. Take Tower of Hell for an example. During 2020 to 2021, Tower of Hell almost had always 100,000 players average, but by 2023, Tower of Hell only sees 30k players average. The reason of Flood Escape 2's downfall is due to the lack of updates in the game. While the game is unable to become popular again is because the parkour genre in Roblox is also slowly falling. I believe if the parkour genre were still to be as popular as they were back then, Flood Escape 2 would definitely be at an average of 4,000 players rather than the 1,000 players it sees now.